Hey everybody, welcome back. We're gonna get started a little early, give people the chance to get in here. And then I will introduce your first panelist to you. Hi! Welcome back. We are gonna wait just a couple of minutes for everybody to get in here. And I actually have... Okay, so it looks like our panelists is jumping in. Hello!
Hi there!
So everybody, this is our first panelist. We are doing the Bringing Your Cosplay to Life with Drugstore Makeup panel. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to get in here because it doesn't technically start for another minute or two.
We're all good.
Yeah, and so we'll wait until they get in here and then we'll get going. But if you want to introduce yourself for now, you're welcome to.
Absolutely. Hi, my name's Sherry, or D&D Geek Girl. I've been cosplaying for about 8 years now, doing historical reenactment before that and theater before that. Please excuse any squeaking you hear in the background. My dog has decided to wake up because I'm talking. I primarily specialize in cosplaying literary characters or characters that don't tend to have a whole lot of concept art to them. For example, the character I'm cosplaying today is from an indie book, Unchosen, by Jeffrey Cook and Catherine Perkins, available at clockworkdragon.net. Yeah, let's knock our screen over while we're putting the book back. That's swell. So yeah, that's kind of who I am. If you have any questions that you're coming into the panel wanting to know, please feel free to drop them in the story so I know kind of how to tailor the panel for everybody. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Some of those questions too for you guys, I'm going to be kind of fielding to the side. So if they don't get answered right away, don't worry. I've got them written down and we'll go over them.
Perfect.
But I'm going to actually put this down in here for you while we're waiting for everybody to join.
I didn't realize my ring light would be so obvious on the TV screen in the background. So that's fun. Didn't show up in photos, but
you know, it's all good.
It's all good. My first live ever, so hi everyone.
Ooh, very exciting. All right, so I've gone ahead and put your username in the comments, so if anybody wants to know exactly what that is. But it is 5:16 now, so I think we can go ahead and get started. So take it away.
Awesome. Well, like I said, my name's Sherry. I specialize in literary characters and bringing cosplay to life on the cheap. I do a lot of closet cosplay. I do a lot of cosplay that, while the outfit might be particularly spectacular, I don't use a lot of like production style makeup or anything like that. I like to stick to the basics. I'm also an amateur makeup artist. I do makeup for different models for other projects that I'm working on. I also help with a bunch of theater programs, doing makeup for kids, things like that. So I like to keep things cheap and simple because I'm not made of money. So the easiest way to kind of go through the kit that I have is to kind of just start at the basics and move your way up. Everything you see here, minus the like obvious prosthetic looks, the eye and the teeth and the glove, everything else here was done more or less with drugstore makeup. I do have a couple things that aren't drugstore that I like to use, and I'll kind of go through why I choose them versus why I don't use a drugstore equivalent, because some things are worth the money. Starting off, primers. Primers are really just cheap and easy. I use a lot of Maybelline. However, if I want things to stay super long term for like a con day, I have a Mary Kay lady, and their primers last super long. And I like this one's been going for over a year for me now, and I still have quite a bit left of it. And I just ordered a new one. So primers, you can go really cheap, you can go really expensive. There's not really one way that's better from the other. One second here. So I find, especially for cons, You want to definitely go every step of the way, primer, setting stuff. If you want your makeup to stay, if you're planning to sweat in it, if you're planning to move around in it, if you're going to be under bright lights, definitely set your stuff and prime your stuff ahead of time. If you forget to, oh well, it's just kind of the way things go. Can we get a close-up of your face? Here you go. Nice and close for you. After that, I go into foundations and stuff. I just use a lot of Maybelline Fit Me because it comes in every shade imaginable. This isn't my shade. This is one of the models that I work with a lot shade, and I tend to keep a lot of them in hand. I also use them though for contouring because I like doing cream contour or wet contour in addition to doing powder contour. I think it just builds the face a lot better. But yeah, so I use very basic foundation, layer it on, and then I spray it with finishing spray and let that dry before I move on to anything. I use a finishing spray that isn't a drugstore brand. I use Scandinavia. You can get this by Urban Decay as well. Scandinavia makes the Urban Decay finishing spray that you can get a lot of places. It also makes Mary Kay's finishing spray, which is where I ran into it. That said, for things on a cheaper note, I've used NYX finishing spray and it works just fine. I find I have to touch it up a couple times throughout the day, but I haven't noticed a whole lot of like failure to use with it. So if you can't get a hold of some of this stuff, Scandinavia you can get on Amazon. And then this big bottle, while it costs a bit to get going, this has lasted me a year. I just move it into the smaller bottles so I can take it with me to conventions and things like that. And it just stays home in my main makeup kit. After that, I move on to contouring or any detail work. For this look in particular, I kind of split my face in half and did all of this side of my face with the masculine contouring and things like that. I did that first because I knew this was going to take a lot longer. My contour palette, my personal favorite, is out of stock right now. It's the BH Studio Pro because it doesn't have any glitter in it. Because for con stuff, unless you are going to be not taking a whole lot of photos, if you're just going to be walking around con or if you're playing a fairy, you don't need a lot of glitter, especially in your base levels. Will there be a list of makeup I use for later reference? I can try and type one up, or feel free to message me and I'm more than happy to give you a list. However, I have used other contour kits. I got this one, which you can see I've hit pan on pretty heavily at Christmas time for $5 it was either Fred Meyer or Walgreens. So any sort of palette works. The other thing you can do, Profusion, which is a drugstore brand at certain Fred Meyer and Walmarts, has a really cool matte palette that I love, and using matte palette for contouring isn't a bad way to go. This palette was only $5. I love Profusion because all of their super cool palettes are only about $5 to $10 each. And they go a long way. Unless you're like digging into green and yellow like I am, because I do this plus Pikachu. So contouring, you can go however direction you want. I'm not going to teach you how to contour. I'm not going to teach you what brushes to contour with. Though that brings up a good point. Brushes, you can kind of get wherever you feel you like best. I like the Eco Tools bamboo stuff because it's all natural. It's a little softer and they last for a long time. They don't kind of fall apart while you're cleaning them, things like that. And then as for sponges, sponges are kind of a dime a dozen for me. I like having ones with the flat side so I can do press stuff. But other than that, I just kind of go through them pretty quick. I buy them cheap. Also, please let me know if I'm going too fast. I have a tendency to ramble. So from there, I did contouring. I did eye makeup using the Mattes palette. And then for this stuff, it's a lot easier than it seems. I literally put my wig cap on like I was going to use it, and then just pulled it over my face all the way down, put primer on, and then dabbed everything over it. The one thing I will say with the primer that I used for this is I use eyeshadow primer and not face primer when I'm trying to do a lot of color. So I use NYX eyeshadow base for like almost all of my looks. I like the white. It does come in a neutral. Even under this eye, I put pretty much drag level of primer on all the way up to my eyebrow, and then put my colors over it because one, for colors, it's going to make it pop a lot. And two, for everything else, it sets all the powder on there and doesn't make it crease. And since I have hooded eyes, that's kind of important to me. The other thing I use that I forgot to mention earlier, so I'm going to back up a step and go into concealers really quick. NYX Under Eye Concealer. Focus. I'll put a link in the bottom. Is really good. It's a nice peachy tone and it'll cover most of the bags under your eyes with only one coat. For regular concealers, I have a variety. I have things as easy as Wet n Wild that they're like $2 at the drugstore. I have the super lasting, this is like pretty much the highest quality you can get at a drugstore, Maybelline Long Last with a sponge applicator that I use. And I also have a Tarte Shape Tape from Ulta. For everyday stuff, for my personal stuff, I use the Shape Tape because it goes a long way for a little bit. And that's what I'm really going for. I want bang for my buck, and this tube costs $12. However, if I'm needing to conceal a large place, such as I have a model that has some tattoos that I have to cover up every once in a while, or if I'm having a really bad acne day, or if I'm doing a look where I need to cover quite a bit, that's when I go to the thicker cream-based ones because it goes on really easy. It also works really well for contouring, for liquid contour. And so, yeah, most of this is just eyeshadow. The only color in all of this that wasn't part of this Spectrum palette is that dark green that you see that comes up really well. And that was a custom shade made for me by a friend of mine when she was playing around with making eyeshadow. So I only have a little bit of it left, so I use it sparingly. For finishing things up, I know a lot of people really like finishing powders. I do too. I like to powder everything flat. Again, it looks better on camera that way. I have used a variety of finishing powders and stuff like that. My go-to is actually Ben Nye Neutral Set, and I do buy it this big because I use it, but I break it down into smaller containers and take it with me when I go traveling for cosplay. And then I also, for some more mundane looks, I picked up for super cheap a Ben Nye Luxury Powder that is basically the neutral set in a color. And I really like that for kind of day-to-day looking for more of a peachy tone versus a matte tone. So, why don't we go ahead and take some questions?
I actually have a couple that I've written down for you as we've gone.
Perfect.
Amy Rose Pritchett 10 asked, how do you manage time when you're doing makeup on a con day?
Practice, practice, practice. I won't say I never do a look for the first time on a con day. However, if con day is the first time I am trying a look, I allow myself 2.5 hours to get ready. And I know that sounds really strange, but yet it doesn't. I allow myself 2.5 hours to get ready, and that includes putting on the costume. If it's a complicated costume, such as something that involves corsets or lots of straps or armor or needs a second person, I allow 3 hours. Some of the costumes that I do regularly, you might see in my profile picture, I have a satyr-esque character with the big horns and pretty full face of makeup. I do that costume enough that I know personally I can do it in 45 minutes, start to finish for makeup, and then another 15 to 20 to get the costume on. However, even that costume, I allow at least an hour and a half to 2 hours every con morning. And then the other thing I do is I set alarms every half hour or so just to keep myself on track. And then the third thing I do is I tend to listen to music while I'm getting ready. Or if I'm cosplaying a character that's from a show that I'm planning to act out a lot. For example, when I cosplay, I do a female Joker. When I do that, I tend to watch episodes of the animated series that has a Joker in it a lot, so I can get the voice and mannerism, but I'm also seeing the face for that character. But yeah, I do 2 to 3 hours of prep time before we leave for cons. That's how I manage time to do my makeup.
Okay, so next I have a question from earlier from actually the same person who just put a question in, Keeper of Milo. Milo?
Milo.
They said, by con day, do you mean 6 hours or 6 or so hours or shorter or longer? So how long are you wearing the makeup for?
He's asking leading questions because he's also a con buddy of mine. My con days, the shortest con day I have, because I help and work as a vendor as well. So my shortest con day is 8 to 10 hours, plus travel, because we don't often get a chance to stay at the hotel. Most of the cons we do are within an hour of 1 or 2 locations that we stay at. My place for home base and for Oregon area cons, and the owner of Clockwork Dragon, or one of the main authors, I should say, their location up near Seattle for any of our Seattle-based cons. And we just do cons within about an hour of those distances. So con days, yeah, are 8 to 10 hours. I take a touch-up kit with me in case anything starts to go wrong, or if like I get partway through the con day and realize that something's not staying. I do a lot of looks with prosthetics that require glue. So I bring extra glue with me. I bring extra contour with me. I bring extra setting spray and powder with me because my con days can last up to 12 hours. I have actually worn a costume recently for 21 hours straight because we had a business meeting after a con day. So in order to get that to stay, I definitely needed to rely on having a kit come with me to con.
Okay. The next one I've got, which you can kind of still see on the screen here, is from Malfunctioning Adult. And they said, any tips for blending cream contour? They've always struggled with it.
Don't put any powder on before you try your cream contour. Liquid sticks to liquid, and powder sticks to powder. But once you try and blend cream on top of a powder, you're going to get clumping. The other thing I do is just a lot of blending. It's also part of why I use foundations instead of like stick cream contours, unless I'm trying to cover something up completely. And then when in doubt, if you can't get it to blend really well, get a little bit more of your base foundation and layer it on top, and circular motions will help it blend a little more. Sometimes when you're having trouble blending a cream, it's because it has set too far. The other thing I can say is for creams that are not necessarily like stick creams, if you're using something like a Ben Nye cream makeup, like the Ben Nye Clown White, it needs to be a little bit warm before you put it on. One thing I've seen people do is if they're using, apologies for my dog again, I'm sorry. If they're using something like a stick base and it's not going on really well, or it's particularly cold where you're at, a lot of people I know will warm it somewhere on their body, whether it's sticking it in their cleavage, putting it while they're sitting down, putting it tucked between their leg and their stomach, warming it up a little bit between their hands before you start it, things like that. So warming your cream a little bit might help. Don't stick it in the microwave. Pro tip. Or you can get a glass of hot water and dip it in there. That'll help warm it up a little bit without changing the texture of your cream.
I think we have another question down here at the bottom. Do you have a favorite eyeshadow base? That's from Nedley Deadly Cosplay.
NYX. I love NYX eyeshadow cream base, if I can get that to focus. It comes in white and 2 neutral colors. I like the white because even if you're doing a neutral eye, so example, I used it behind this eye, which is just a basic masculine neutral eye. And even though I didn't need the colors to pop on it, it made it set really well. Whereas I used it for all over this area because I wanted the colors to pop and I wanted those white lines kind of in between the scales there to show through. So yes, that's my favorite eyeshadow primer. In a pinch though, I use my concealer if I've forgotten to bring my eyeshadow primer for some reason.
Okay. We've still got about 30 minutes left, so if you have any other tips or you want to do anything, totally up to you.
Yeah.
If anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will review them.
Sure. So one thing I can go over is a few products that I've done, both the professional and the drugstore version, and why I choose each different one. So one thing I can bring up right off the bat, because I've got, or I had, yeah, right here. So I have here 2 different blacks. They're both base black. You can kind of see, that's the Ben Nye, and this is the Maybelline. The Ben Nye is both an eyeshadow and a powder. I think they're calling it a powder foundation. Aqua paint. So add water, becomes paint, but you can use it dry. I got it on a sale for doing, because I went to a professional makeup theater place that was doing a couple sales. Because I was having some trouble keeping my black eyeliner on, and I tried a combination of different powders, liquids, etc. And I thought I would try this. This does not work any better than just a $1 Maybelline palette from your store. The only difference is when you get the Ben Nye one wet, it moves a lot smoother because it's designed to get wet, versus the Maybelline, which isn't designed to get wet. However, if you spray a little bit of finishing spray, either directly onto it, or I like to spray it into the lid and then dip my brush into it before touching the thing, you can turn either of them into a really nice liquid with just a little bit of finishing spray or water. I like finishing spray or mixing liquid better than water because I think it doesn't move as much. But you can easily turn either of these into a liquid eyeliner, and this was $2 and this was $15. So just kind of example of expensive makeup isn't always better. In the same vein, I mentioned before with the primers, I like using a Mary Kay primer instead of like a Maybelline for all over face because I feel it sticks better. But I also do have the Maybelline for doing areas where I don't necessarily want to use the really thick, viscous finishing powder, or primer. Did I see a couple of questions pop up?
Yes. Give me just a moment. So the first one we've got is S Bishop 018 asked, what is the best finishing spray or powder that you recommend?
So I personally like Scandinavia for the spray. Also, Urban Decay's long-lasting stuff is made off of the same as Scandinavia. It'll usually have a thing on the back that says Scandinavia with Urban Decay. I just went straight to the source, got it off Amazon. The big bottle usually costs me, I think it was 40 or 50 bucks for the big bottle, but it's worth it, especially if you have some little bottles floating around that you can transfer it into. I have 2 or 3 of the little bottles that float around. The little bottles from Mary Kay, which is the same, Scandinavia makes theirs as well. These ones were running me $17, $18 a pop. They last for a long time, but when I started doing kids theater and putting on makeup for other models and other cosplayers, it became difficult for me to keep a supply for myself. So I went in and got the big bottle. For powder, I personally like Ben Nye Neutral Set finishing powder. However, I've used a couple other. NYX has a particularly good finishing powder that you can get at Fred Meyer or Walmart. I've used one by e.l.f. that wasn't bad. I like really loose powders. I don't like set powders for my finishing powders. So yeah, that's what I'd say for finishing spray and finishing powder.
The next question was from Emery Smoke, who said, "Do you have any recommendation, or I'm sorry, do you have any recommended drugstore false eyelashes?"
Spoiler, I hate false lashes because I don't do them particularly well. I think my last false lashes here, I think my last set came from Sally Beauty, but I actually have seen it at drugstores before. They're Ardell. And I just got the naturals in a multi-pack. However, I've been eyeing a set of magnetic ones on Amazon lately. So sadly, I'm not the best person to ask about either mascara or fake eyelashes because I tend to forget about both.
I really like Kiss number 3.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about it.
That's what I have on right now.
They look great.
Thank you. So next question was from Crazy Kimmy, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing anybody's usernames wrong, who said, "Do you have any tips for doing under eye bags that you want to look natural instead of theatrical?" So like,
so creating an under eye bag?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. What I would do there is you want to build slowly. And then remember that under eye bags aren't just like a solid color. For something like that, I would use either powders would be my go-to because they blend really well, and anything that you can create a bruise out of, you should be able to create an under bag out of. So I would use a combination of my Spectrum palette and my Mattes palette if I were going to do that. Or I have a Ben Nye Bruise palette for cream that I might dip into. And then you want to remember that for under eye bags, you're only really doing a thin line for the darkest color, and then everything blends out after that. If I were to guess what they were doing for this, I would say an Aizawa, or another sleepy anime character for that, because Dobbies are supposed to be really big and pronounced. So I would do that, and then maybe even take a thin lining brush to really get the under eye bag right here. And then remember, when you're really tired, you're going to get some bagging up and through here. For example, when I don't have the under eye concealer on, my eyes are purple all the way through here, and they start turning yellow in through here. So the more yellow and purples that you want to add in through here, but make sure you don't add them on top of each other because those two colors cancel each other out. So using a little bit of color theory, using some bruise theory, that's how I would do it.
Okay. The next question I've got is from Nedley Deadly Cosplay, who asks, "What mixing liquid do you use?"
So for a lot of my stuff, I stick with just my setting spray. However, I do have, I managed to get some glue on it, so it's a little sticky. I have Mayron mixing liquid that came with a like super super pigmented silver that I got from them, a metallic silver. And I use that, and I use it pretty sparingly. One, it dries out really quickly if you aren't careful in using it constantly. But two, if you use too much, it doesn't actually set really well. So I only use a little bit of that when I'm doing the silver for my Space Pirate. But in general, if I'm using a liquid to mix, I'm using the finishing spray.
Okay. We still have quite a bit of time left. So if you've got, we're out of questions at the moment, but if anyone else wants to ask any,
yes, please ask questions. The other thing I'll start kind of going into, a lot of people have given me a lot of questions about lipstick in the past, mainly because every look except this one that I have has very vibrant or well done lipstick. It's kind of one of my things when I'm not doing male characters. The short answer to most lipstick questions is any lipstick that you want, use it. Some lipsticks last longer than others. Some are going to stay longer. I particularly, especially for con days, like Rimmel Provocalips. They come in a wide variety of colors. They're supposedly a 12-hour stay. And they work really well. They don't have a whole lot of nudes in the Provocalips line, but there are other liquid lipsticks by Rimmel. And then I use one thing that I got from Sally Beauty, and I'm actually starting to order it online because I couldn't find it last time I went in. I use a product for Condes called Sealed with a Kiss. Lipstick fixative. Nah, I can't get that to focus. You put it on over top, and it is an alcohol seal for your lips. So it is going to pretty much dry your lipstick onto your lips really well. I'm not saying that this is going to keep your lipstick on for an entire con day, but I'm able to put lipstick on very vibrant colors, eat with it, and only have to touch up small portions of it. So this is my definite go-to for conventions, Sealed with a Kiss lipstick fixative, because it will turn any liquid lipstick. So this is just a Wet n Wild Mega Blast that I got just for the color. When you pair it with the Sealed with a Kiss, it turns it into an all-day lipstick. I haven't had as good a luck with it for actual stick lipsticks. I really do like the versatility of a liquid lipstick myself. I have a couple sticks, but I use them more for like bruising and concealing for certain things than I do for my actual lips because I don't feel they stay very well.
Okay. The next one, we've got another question from Keeper of Milo, who said, how do you take that off? I assume he means your makeup.
I mean, usually clothes just come off the same way as everybody else. The teeth just pop out. No. I use a combination of methods. For this look, I'm going to be using primarily coconut oil to get mine off, followed up with makeup wipes, followed up by a shower. Because I bring this into my hairline and I can't quite get it out of my hair without a little bit of extra help. I like coconut oil for really big things or for prosthetics, for things like that, or for getting it out of hair. So especially eyebrows and things like that. It's usually safe for skin. I do know some people that are allergic to coconut, so if you're allergic, don't do it. But it's a really great way to get your makeup off relatively quickly because even makeup that's designed to be waterproof, so alcohol-based products and things like that, aren't oil resistant. Oil is probably the easiest way to get makeup off in general. If you don't have coconut oil, olive oil will do. It's just going to leave your skin a little more oily. Baby oil will do, but again, oily skin. And so if you have any problems with that, definitely veer another direction. For makeup wipes, I bought a bunch of Neutrogena ones from Costco. But again, prior to the isolation stuff and quarantine stuff, I was doing about 15 to 16 cons a year for 3 days at a time minimum. So I was, and plus any makeup, modeling, anything like that on top of everything. So I was going through quite a bit of makeup, and I do enjoy it on a regular day-to-day basis. I find it helps keep my skills sharp if I'm practicing often. So I bought a big thing at Costco of Neutrogena wipes. Most makeup wipes work about the same. If you picked up some really cheap ones, like say Dollar Tree one, you might want to add a little bit of oil or dish soap or any safe soap to it, so that you can kind of boost it a little bit. Shampoo works really well for makeup in a pinch. Things like that. But most makeup wipes will probably actually take all this off. I'm just, for some of the darker stuff that I know happens to stain my skin if left on all day, I'm going to go for the coconut oil because it's going to keep that from happening.
Cool. Last question we've got so far, and we just got another one, it looks like, is from, I cannot say your username on the live, I'm so sorry. Fandom will put a blank in there, and Giggles, who asked, do you have any recommendations for cheap face makeup that is opaque? They said asking for my Mina cosplay, so I'm guessing they mean like paint.
Okay.
Because it's pink, but...
Yeah, for Mina, I'd be tempted to go two ways. The cheapest way to do it is going to be use the lightest foundation you have and some eyeshadow of whatever shade of pink you're wanting. And apply the eyeshadow while your foundation is wet. You may have to go in patches. That's the absolute cheapest way to do it. The other way you can do that is Ben Nye usually has their Clown White cheaper than all of their colors. And so if you do your whole face white and then use eyeshadows, you can actually get a whole lot of contouring when you do it that way, when you're doing powder on top of a face paint like that. I like Ben Nye in general for my face paints. However, Snazaroo is really good. And if you're wanting it to stay a long time, so if you're planning to paint your arms as well, I would actually go for an alcohol-based paint, like maybe Graftobian. They're a little more expensive to start, but I've found that being able to seal your makeup and have it not get on your costume and on other people is usually worth it in the long run. And then on top of everything else, no matter how you go about it, lots of powder. Lots of finishing powder, just to keep it set.
Okay. We're getting close to the end here, but I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up. We have a question from Crazy Kimmy that says, what is the best thing to attach stuff other than lashes to your face? So,
good question. I go back and forth on this one. It really depends on what you're attaching. Right now, my all-time favorite is Prozaid 2, liquid adhesive. It is really good for attaching prosthetics to your head. So I do a couple characters. One has a complete eyepiece that has to be glued over my eyebrow and to my skin. I have another one that has a feather that's coming out of their head. And I use the Prozaid for that, because when I was using spirit gum, I had a lot of problem with, as it dries, it gets really flaky. And so it doesn't actually like to stay, and then you'll start sweating underneath your prosthetic. So if you're not planning to move a lot or sweat a lot, spirit gum actually holds better if it's on an area of your skin that's not going to move. Now, I have a pretty dynamic face, so there's not really a whole lot of space on me that doesn't move other than like right near my ears. And so I'll use spirit gum for attaching prosthetic ears, be they elf ears, satyr ears, whatever. Or if I'm gluing something just to right here to cover an ear, or I sometimes will use spirit gum to hold down my wigs right there. Prozaid, you have to wait for it to get tacky. It goes on both your skin and on the prosthetic. You wait for it to dry and get tacky and then stick them together. So it takes a little bit longer in order to get it ready to go. So if time is of the essence, this is not always the best bet. I find it dries really fast on skin, really slow on prosthetics. But this is what I reach for in general. It's also easier to touch up at conventions than the spirit gum because it dries clear and flat, whereas spirit gum dries tacky. The other thing I use from time to time is liquid latex. So I use this if the prosthetic is latex itself. For example, the prosthetic eye, I'll usually use liquid latex along the outside just to help blend skin tone and prosthetic together and give it kind of a top layer coat. So for that one, I'm using Prozade underneath and liquid latex on top just to make sure that that prosthetic stays really well. But liquid latex is also great if you're building something on your face. I did a play of The Tempest where I was doing the makeup and we had a Caliban. For those of you that aren't familiar, is supposed to be kind of a wild beast, half man type thing. And so we did, using just tissue paper and liquid latex, some raised bumps and warts all over his face. And we did that completely with liquid latex. And we had to take it off and put it back on at one point. And at that point, I used the Prozade underneath and then liquid latex over top of it again. So. Not a short answer on that one. But
no, you're fine. We've got time. That I think does it for the questions. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with, or?
I think I covered just about anything. If anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to message me directly. I would love to talk to you more if you want a product list, or if you just have any direct questions that you didn't want to ask in the live stream. But other than that, unless anyone else has any questions, I don't really have a whole lot else slotted to talk about.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's a lot of
Absolutely.
fun. Everybody that's on here, thank you for joining. Please go follow our lovely panel host here at D&D Geek Girl here on Instagram.
Yep.
Do you have any other handles that you'd like them to follow you at? Do you have a Facebook
D&D
page?
Geek Girl is my handle on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me on Facebook at Chaotic Creations Cosplay. If you are interested in that, I don't update that one quite as much as I should. But that is where you would see a lot more of the finished products of my photos and stuff versus Instagram, which you only get the square. Cool. You can also find where I'm going to be next for cons and panels through Clockwork Dragon Books on Facebook. That is who I usually vend through. And so if they're going to be at a con, odds are very likely I'm going to be there too.
Cool. Excellent. So yeah, everybody go follow and share and support.
And we'll try and get people a list of some of the products that I was talking about today.
Excellent. Yes, we will also post that on our end for you as well too.
Perfect.
But yeah, everybody check it out. Thank you again for hosting. Next up, we've got at 4:30, we have DIY medical masks with Ask Cosplay Senpai coming up, and we will be back for that. Everybody feel free in the meantime to check out the Artist Alley, support the artists, check out our shop. You can find the link for that in our Instagram header. We've got badges, we've got t-shirts. Check them out. Feel free to buy one. Support the con. But otherwise, we will be back at 4:30, and we will see you guys then.
Or 1:30 Pacific Standard,
yes,
right?
Yes. Sorry, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, and 3:30 CST. I'm in Eastern. I forgot that people were in others.
It's all good. It's all good. I was just like, wait, no, I know it's only a bit after mine.
We'll be back shortly, in about 30 minutes, with the next panel. But we will see you all there.
Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.
You too. Hope you enjoy the rest of the con.